Today's ancient witness is from Mark chapter 7, verses 24 through 30. After teaching, Jesus, getting up, went to the region of Tyre. There he entered a house and did not wish anyone to know, yet he was not able to escape notice. Rather, a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was Greek, meaning not from Judea, of Syro-Phoenician ancestry, and she asked him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He told her, "Let the children of the household be fed first, for it is not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." But she answered back, "Healer, even the dogs under the table eat the crumbs of the little children." Then Jesus said to her, "For saying this, go, the demon has come out of your daughter." And she went to her house, found the child put on the bed, and the demon gone.
Thank you, Corey, for that reading. That was from the Women's Lectionary Commentary. Let us begin with a quick prayer. Oh God, open our minds to hear your word. Open our hearts to receive healing and grace. Amen. One of the places I used to frequent was a coffee shop just on the outside of downtown Fort Worth. This place was called Buongiorno Coffee House. That's two words for all you Italian aficionados. And at the time, it was located in a small retail center on the west side with a church in the space next door. And although this was a branch location, it did have a roaster in its original spot in a neighboring community. Picture a classic coffee house with a twist. It featured a bar for espresso and French press for your regular coffee orders. So two age-old methods of coffee preparation. It also featured a pastry bar, and there was a jug of citrus water on the counter with flavor with peels of lemon and lime and orange. Lovely treat. There were tables, chairs, and sofas, giving it a very homey feel. And this place had a very welcoming vibe. Its decor and ambiance signaled community, creativity, connection, and relaxation. Just an all-around fun. Now, I loved it because it reminded me of my first coffee house experience. That was in college in the 90s, as coffee houses were spreading across the country. And this particular place I'm thinking about was called Copacetic Cafe. Now, I remember that being such a good experience to be there with my friends or late night studying. It was very great. But this place seemed to take Copacetic to another level of comfort and community. I used to go there for their teas. They would boil the water and put it in a gooseneck porcelain tea kettle, served on a tray with a kettle, a mug, and tea bags. I would get 2 cups on the order, and that was just heaven to be there. So 1 cup that would make a second. Now, if you're familiar with Italian, buongiorno, one word, translates to hello or good morning, similar to the French bonjour. And it's a phrase designed to welcome someone and invite a conversation in an informal way, aptly appropriate for this coffee house. So one night I showed up tired and longing for a third place where I could just chill out with a tea, sit by the window, and regroup. Hey, Herb, could you turn that down, please? Now, I didn't tell anybody I was going, and nobody would be expecting me to be there. Just wanted to relax from a long day and unwind a bit. So I entered the not too busy cafe, and I placed my order and hand the barista my payment card, and she sees the name on the card and asks me if I'm related to the famous Bass family in Fort Worth. Now, not sure if you know them, but being tired and not myself, I made a big deal about the question. I wanted to know what difference that would make. And I didn't say it in the best of ways, but she let it roll off her and persisted in the conversation. Now, as I waited at the table, it occurred to me that I was incredibly rude. I should be flattered that someone was curious about me. So I immediately went back and apologized, but it definitely got me thinking about what folks go through during their work shift. So it was a learning experience for me. For sure. Now, put that on pause. Turning to our text. Our gospel story for the day involves an exorcism from a distance, a clever woman, and a tired and frustrated Jesus. Jesus has just left his confrontation in Galilee with the folks from the religious establishment. He's fled to Tyre on the Mediterranean coast by an overland route, far from the Jewish-occupied territory and to a place where no one would expect to find him. Jesus is trying to regroup and refresh, and he wants rest and relief and a chance to figure out what to do next. When suddenly, his moment of privacy is interrupted. A Syrian woman has come to him seeking to have a demon cast out of her daughter, according to the story. Now, it's not unusual that Jesus casts out demons. He's done that before. And it's not unusual that he helps people of different backgrounds or faith traditions. But what is unusual is what Jesus says. Now, when you read and heard the gospel witness today, you may have asked yourself, did Jesus just say that? Did Jesus just call that woman and her child and her people dogs? That seems rather harsh, and it doesn't seem like he would do that normally. Jesus, who defended the woman accused of adultery and who recognized those so often placed in the shadows of society, seems to be acting out of character. It doesn't make much sense that Jesus would speak this harshly to a person in need. He is a healer, after all, as his unexpected visitor has pointed out. And initially, Jesus seems disinclined to help her, and his dismissal indicates that the children of Israel are to be fed first. So the text reminds us that Jesus was born into a particular culture and impacted by the norms associated with cross-cultural relationships. And the reference to dogs was usually an insult intended to degrade those of whom it was used, as dogs were regarded as shameless and unclean, and one used by many people of the time regardless of their faith tradition. So it's quite likely that Jesus is simply acting as a person in authority who has the power to help a person in need, and maybe even someone who's having a bad day. So the story turns on her persistence, and rather than leaving insulted and rejected, the woman undermines Jesus' unsympathetic refusal with an observation from everyday life, that children drop crumbs at mealtime and the household pets under the table snap them up. It's a measure of faith from a parent deeply concerned for the well-being of her child. Ultimately, Jesus heals her daughter after only a brief, if fairly combative exchange. But it is an exchange that disputes common notions of belonging and worth. And as it turns out, this woman from Syria is the only character in Mark to invite Jesus to deepen or broaden his way of thinking and challenge his held beliefs. And in the process, she teaches Jesus something important about the scope of his ministry. So, what do we make of Jesus' initial behavior? Where nowhere else does Jesus speak in a demeaning way to someone who needs help. This woman is an outsider for all intents and purposes, and Jesus does well to recognize his limitations. I would hope that he apologized, as his rudeness had the potential to hurt. At the least, it reveals Jesus' humanity, and that the divine creator would understand what we go through. But this story highlights a Jesus who listens. The unnamed parent in the story senses that Jesus heals what is broken, broken bodies, broken spirits, and broken relationships. She spoke up and spoke out, and because of her action, Jesus gracefully reacts with maturity that empowers change and enables inclusivity. It seems here Jesus broadens his mind to rethink the abundance of God's love and how it extends to everyone. And it is a Jesus that empathizes with our struggles, and a Jesus that demonstrates a new and better path for the future where all find a sense of welcome and belonging, where all find wholeness, and where all are included. So the story goes to show the importance of rest and its corresponding effect on self-awareness. And researchers say that in the heat of the moment, we can become strangers to ourselves. And when faced with acts of rudeness and incivility, Those experiences have a tendency to hijack our minds. It can be helpful to change our own frame of reference and to focus on the future. Such was the case with the Syrophoenician woman. So yes, Jesus seemed to struggle with inclusion of others, but this same Jesus, when confronted with his own limitations, opened his mind to see that the same Jesus who eats with outsiders and tax collectors can be encouraged to welcome everyone to the table. My friends, God welcomes you into an abundance of love, into divine presence and divine healing. Amen.